All right, honors chemistry kiddos, we are going to do a little bit of review today. So now that you know how to name things, we're going to put naming things together with the concept of moles before. We did moles a long time ago. So we're going to do a little review today because the next concepts that we're going to do, percent composition and molecular formulas, and equations and reaction types and stoichiometry all depend on you knowing how to use moles. So we're going to do that again. I'm going to link some of the old videos to today's module as well, so that if you need more of a review than this, you will have it. Okay, so a little bit of review, mole and measuring matter. So how many grams are there in 0.25 moles of ammonia? Okay, so the thing I'm going to expect you now to do is we've got names. I'm not just giving you formulas. I'm giving you names. Ammonia is a common name that I'm expecting you to know. So ammonia is NH3, if you remember our common name. Now the thing that we need to figure out for grams to go from moles to grams is we need the molar mass. And if you remember how to calculate the molar mass, we need to know the type and the number of all the elements in a compound. So if you look at ammonia, we have one nitrogen right here, and we have 3 hydrogens. So we're going to look up nitrogen on our periodic table. And if you remember, I wanted you to do masses to the nearest 0.01, okay? So we're going to do the masses to the 0.01. So nitrogen, our mass here is 14.007. So the nearest hundredth is going to be 14.01 grams per mole. So we're going to write this down, 14.01. And then for hydrogen, we need to multiply it by 3 because we got 3 of them. Let's look at hydrogen. We have 1.008, so that's going to round to 1.01. So 1.01. So we're going to add all of that up together. So 14.01 plus 3.03, because 3 times 1.01 is 3.03, that will get us a grand total of 17.04 grams per mole. Now this is the molar mass ratio that I want to be able to use. I can use it to go from grams to moles or moles to grams. Today on this example, I want to go from moles to grams. So we're going to use our unit analysis like we used a bit ago. I'm going to start with the number that is given here. I have 0.25 moles of ammonia, NH3. And I want my moles to cancel out, so I'm going to put my moles part of this ratio that I created over here on the bottom. So in 1 mole of ammonia, I have 17.04 grams of ammonia. Then I'm going to take my handy calculator and I'm going to do the multiplication and division. Remember, everything on the top is going to be a multiplier, and everything on the bottom of these ratios that we create is going to be a divider. So in this case, I'm going to take 0.25 and I'm going to multiply it by 17.04. And when I get this, my calculator gives me 4.26 grams of ammonia. Now, I'm not necessarily done because if you remember, I have to do sig figs. Okay, now here I only have 2 sig figs, so I really should only do 2 sig figs on my answer. So if I do my 2 sig figs, the 6 tells me to round up. So I'm going to round this up to 4.3 grams. of ammonia. So the 4.3 would be my correct answer. All right. Next, how many moles are in 2.50 grams of sulfuric acids? Now remember, ics come from eights. So we're going to look for sulfate. So let's get my periodic table with my ions and open that up. We want to find sulfate. So if I look for sulfate, it's SO4 negative 2. Okay, so SO4 negative 2. So if that's a negative 2, how many hydrogens of +1 do I need to add to it to get that to balance? If you said 2, you are correct. So my formula is H2SO4. The next thing I need to do is I need to find my molar mass. So I need to find 2 hydrogens. We already did hydrogen up top. I have 1.01 times 2. I need to find sulfur. Sulfur. I have 32.066. So that's going to round to 32.07. Okay. So sulfur, 32.07, and oxygen. I've got 4 of them, so I need to multiply by 4. So I look at oxygen, 15.999 is going to round to 16.00. So 16.00. When I add all of this up, let's see, 2.02 plus 32.07 plus 64, this will give me 98.09 grams per mole there. Now, I'm going to use this ratio to create grams to moles. Now, I want my grams, my 2.50 grams of sulfuric acid. I want my grams to cancel out. So I'm going to put the gram part of this ratio that we created over here on the bottom. So this is going to be 98.09 grams of sulfuric acid is in 1 mole of sulfuric acid. And I should just do the formula, H2SO4, not write out the name. Now, so I'm going to take 2.50 and I am going to divide it by 98.09. And my calculator spits out 0.0254867.978. This is a thing for sig figs, isn't it? So with sig figs, how many sig figs do I have? I've got 3 right here. So I'm going to use 3 digits, and I'm going to put it in scientific notation to make it a little bit easier. 2.548 is going to round to 2.55 times 10 to the negative 2 moles of sulfuric acid. Okay? Now, I want to know how many molecules. Do you remember how to go from moles to molecules? Do you remember a number called Avogadro's number? Do you remember that? 6.022 times 10 to the 23 molecules or atoms or ions are in 1 mole. So we have moles here. I'm going to do it right from the beginning so I don't have any rounding errors. So I have 2.50 grams of sulfuric acid, and I have 98.09 grams of sulfuric acid in 1 mole of sulfuric acid. And then in 1 mole of whatever I'm counting, now I'm counting sulfuric acid, I have 6.022 times 10 to the 23 molecules of sulfuric acid. Okay, so essentially I'm taking what I did last time and I'm just multiplying it by Avogadro's number to get out of moles and into molecules. So when I multiply that, I get 1.534814996 E22. Once again, I only have 3 sig figs. So that's going to round to 1.53 times 10. Oh my gosh. 1.53 1.53 times 10 to the 22 molecules of sulfuric acid. Okay, so we want to determine the mass in the following. Okay, so I have 3.57 moles of aluminum. I'm going to use my periodic table to look at aluminum. So aluminum, I have 26.982 grams per mole of aluminum. Okay, so 26.982. And I'm going to use that. It's not going to let me go back to my video. Okay, so I'm going to start with the moles of aluminum. And in 1 mole of aluminum, I have 26.98 grams of aluminum. Okay, notice my moles will cancel. I'm still using my unit analysis to get out of units that I want. Okay, so 3.57 multiplied by 26.98 gives me 96.3186. With sig figs, that's going to round to 96.3 grams of aluminum. Okay, now I want you to do this next one by yourself and see if you can do it. Pause the video and we'll check in just a minute. Okay, you ready to check? All right, so I've got 42.6 moles of silicon, and I want to get into grams. So I'm going to look at my periodic table. Silicon, 28.086. That's going to round to 28.09. Okay. So in 1 mole of silicon, I have 28.09 grams of silicon. Okay. So I'm going to take 42.6 and I'm going to multiply it by 28.09. This will give me 1,196. I only have 3 sig figs. So let's see. I'm going to write this one out. Let's change this. So 3 sig figs, that means I have to stop here. That 6 tells me to round up, doesn't it? So if I round up a 9, it becomes a 10. So this is going to be 1,200, but that only gives me 2 sig figs. So how do I do that with maintaining 3 sig figs? I'm going to have to put scientific notation. So to do that, I'm going to do 1.20 times 10 to the 3 grams of silicon. Notice that I have that decimal point in there, and any any zero after the non-zero numbers in a number that has a decimal point is significant. So that gives me my 3 sig figs right there. So that means that I do know it to 1,200 in that tenths place. Okay, next thing. I want you to try these next two on your own too, and pause the video and come back in a minute or two and check. Okay, we want to determine the number of moles. So we're going to use the opposite. We're going to go from grams to moles here. Okay, so I've got 25.5 grams of silver. I want to get into moles. So I want my grams of silver to cancel out and get into moles of silver. So I need to look at my periodic table and look up that molar mass of silver. So when I do that, silver is right here. Okay, so in silver, I've got 107.868. So we're going to call that 107.87. Okay, 107.87. 107.87 grams. Okay, so I've got 3 sig figs here. So 25.5 divided by 107.87. With 3 sig figs, I should report 0.236 moles of silver. Okay, how'd you do on that one? All right, next one, 300 grams of sulfur. Same setup. I need to find my molecular mass of sulfur from the periodic table, and I need to then multiply it by 1 mole. So let's look up sulfur. Sulfur is 32.066. So 32.07 is what we're going to round this to. 32.07 grams. So I'm going to take 300.0 divided by 32.07. I've got 4 sig figs here. So when I report 4 sig figs, I'm going to report 9.355 moles of sulfur. Because that 4, when my calculator did this, 3.545, this 5 tells me to round up on that 4. Okay? Now, any questions or concerns on this concept, please come and talk to me, email me. We will get you sorted out, because to be successful in this next bit, you really need to have an understanding of how to work with moles, how to convert from grams to moles or moles back to grams. That is going to be extremely necessary. I will post some of the older videos when we first went over this on this module as well. So if you need to review, you have those as well. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later. Bye.